The spark the bedroom light flickered to life, humming with a warm amber glow. Malik Carter froze mid-turn, a flathead screwdriver still between his fingers. The words had landed like a dropped wrench in an empty hallway, loud, unexpected, impossible to ignore. "You're handsome, you know that?" Maya Williams, 32, leaned casually against the doorway, barefoot, dressed in a soft blue dress that clung to her silhouette with effortless elegance. Her arms were loosely crossed, her expression unreadable. Malik blinked, meeting her gaze. Thanks," he said, voice caught between surprise and suspicion. It wasn't the first time a client had complimented him, but this was different. Her tone wasn't flirty or teasing, it was direct, honest, like a statement of fact. That threw him off more than anything. He wiped his hands on the rag hanging from his tool belt and stepped back from the light switch. "I replaced the terminal and added a surge stabilizer. You shouldn't see any more flickering." Maya nodded once but didn't move. "That's good. A beat. You always explain things like that. Calm, professional, like you've been doing it your whole life?" "I guess," Malik replied carefully, coiling the old wiring into a plastic bag. "Clarity matters, especially when it's someone else's home." That made her smile, not wide, not bright, but subtle, approving. The silence that followed wasn't awkward, but thick with something unnamed. Maya straightened and walked into the room, her footsteps soundless on the dark hardwood floor. "Do you have time for lunch?" Malik blinked. "Lunch? There's a little place 2 blocks down. They do a mean smoked turkey club, my treat." He hesitated. Everything about his upbringing, his work ethic, his caution told him to say no. Never cross personal boundaries with clients. Never blur the lines. Especially not with someone who lived in a house with a 3-car garage and a driveway longer than the block he grew up on. But she stood there, waiting, not pushing, not pleading, just asking. "I appreciate the offer, but I've got another job in an hour," he said, half lie, half truth. His next job wasn't urgent, but his discomfort was. Maya tilted her head, studying him not with judgment, but curiosity. "Another time then, maybe." She extended a hand, surprising him again. "Thanks for the fix, Malik." He shook it. Her palm was warm, her grip firm, not the delicate socialite handshake he'd expected. As he packed up his kit and walked out, he felt her eyes on his back, not predatory, not flirtatious, just observant, present, like someone watching a documentary and seeing something real for the first time. Malik's truck coughed to life, the AC groaning under the North Carolina sun. He pulled away from the mansion, the name Williams still echoing in his head like a brand. Merging onto Providence Road, he caught himself glancing at the rearview mirror. He didn't know why she wasn't going to come running out after him. By the time he pulled into the driveway of his next client, a single-story ranch with peeling paint and a broken front step, he'd mostly shaken the encounter off. Mostly, but when he reached for his phone to log the job, he saw a notification from a number not in his contacts. The preview read, "This is Maya. In case you change your mind." He didn't open it. Not right away. Instead, he put the phone in his pocket and got back to work. That night, Malik lay on the couch in his modest apartment above a barber shop, the hum of the city muffled by old windows. He scrolled his messages again. Maya's name was still there, just her first name, just 7 words. He tapped reply, then stopped, deleted, tried again, then sighed. Malik Carter was not a man prone to fantasy. Raised by a single mother who worked 2 jobs and still taught him to solder copper piping by age 10, he believed in reality, in showing up early, double-checking the voltage, doing things right the first time. His hands were steady, his mind focused, and his heart. His heart stayed out of the way, but something about Maya's voice, her unguarded gaze, the way she'd said those 5 words so plainly, it cracked something. A hairline fracture in the shell he wore every day. Maybe it was just lunch. Maybe it was something else. But Malik had always been cautious, and he hadn't survived this long by confusing kindness for anything more. So he powered off the phone, rolled over, and told himself to forget it. He wouldn't. Not yet. Scene 2. The invitation. 3 days passed. Malik hadn't replied to Maya's message, not because he didn't want to, but because he wasn't sure. How? Every time he looked at her name on the screen, his thumb hovered, hesitated, backed away. What could he say? That he was flattered? That he hadn't stopped thinking about her? That he was a guy with rough hands and worn boots who had no business walking into a life where art hung on the walls and the wine rack had a climate control system? Friday afternoon, the second message came. Smoked turkey club still on the menu. Tomorrow at noon. I'll drive this time. She didn't ask. She invited. Bold, straightforward, like before. Malik stared at the message for a long moment, standing. In the supply aisle of Bailey's Hardware, the buzz of fluorescent lights above, the scent of cut wood and machine oil around him, everything real. Everything grounded. He typed back, okay, drop a pin, and hit send before he could change his mind. Saturday arrived too fast. Malik stood outside the small hardware store off 4th Street, dressed in a crisp gray button-up and dark jeans, not dressy, not casual, just presentable. The Carolina sun was high, but the air was mild. He adjusted his collar, rubbed the nervous sweat from his palms, and waited. At exactly 12:02, a silver Audi A7 pulled into the lot, sleek, quiet, polished. Maya stepped out, barefoot again, wearing a flowy blue dress, not the same one from before, but close. Her hair was pinned up, soft tendrils falling around her cheeks. Malik straightened. You always show up barefoot? She laughed. Only when I'm trying to keep things real. They drove out of the city, past rows of brick storefronts and aging neighborhoods toward the hills. She didn't play music, just let the wind slip through the cracked window, soft and clean. They passed a cluster of old churches, a faded barn. A single yellow school bus parked in an empty lot. I know a spot, Maya said. Not fancy but peaceful. 20 minutes later, they pulled off a gravel road into a wide-open clearing tucked between tall pines. A narrow river flowed just beyond the tree line, and a picnic table stood under the shade of an old oak. No one else in sight. Malik stepped out first, scanning the space like he was checking a fuse box, cautious, quiet, observant. Maya grabbed a brown paper bag from the back seat and walked ahead, barefoot toes brushing the grass. They sat for a long time without speaking, just unwrapping their sandwiches and chewing. Turkey, cranberry aioli, toasted sourdough. She was right, it was a good sandwich. Finally, Maya broke the silence. Do you think I'm weird? Malik looked at her, surprised. What? I mean, I just asked a stranger to lunch, drove him to the woods, barefoot. He smiled. You're not weird, you're unexpected. She tilted her head. Is that a compliment? It is if you've spent most of your life being ignored. That shut her up for a moment. Then, quietly, I don't ignore people, I notice. They sat again in silence, but this time it felt different, lighter. A bridge had formed, not strong yet, but real. Maya placed her sandwich down, dusted her fingers. I used to come here. As a kid, my grandmother would bring me. She said the sound of the water could wash away whatever people made you carry. Malik nodded, watching the river dance over stones. Smart woman. She was. Raised me more than my parents did. He didn't ask for more, just let the stillness answer. After a while, Maya leaned back on her hands, eyes closed, face to the sky. You know what I like about you? I'm cheap labor. She chuckled. No, you don't ask about my house or my car or what I do for a living. You don't seem impressed. I was taught not to stare at what doesn't belong to me. She opened her eyes. And what if it does? Malik met her gaze but didn't respond, not because he didn't have a thought, but because her question wasn't about ownership. It was about worth. The light shifted. The air cooled slightly. A breeze rustled the oak branches above them. "I should go," Malik said softly. Maya didn't move. "Will you?" He stood slowly, brushing crumbs from his pants. "Not if you ask me to stay." She smiled, small but certain. "Then stay." So he did. They stayed under that tree until the shadows grew long and the wind turned cold. They talked about nothing, favorite snacks, awful customers, childhood injuries. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't scripted. It was honest. And for a man who'd spent most of his adult life hiding behind schedules, tools, and caution, it felt like the beginning of something he didn't know he needed. Scene 3. The dinner. The tea. Following week moved like thick molasses. Malik filled it with work outlet replacements, breaker resets, a whole day rewiring a ranch house in Monroe. But even the busiest schedule couldn't silence the echo of Maya's voice in his mind. "You don't seem impressed." And what if it does? He replayed that line more than he cared to admit, not because of the words themselves, but because of how she said them. Calm, challenging, like someone used to being seen through, not seen. Wednesday afternoon, while replacing a faulty junction box in a duplex downtown, his phone buzzed in his back pocket. He wiped sweat from his forehead and checked it. "Maya, you free Friday night?" His reply came quicker than expected. "What's the Kia plan?" "Maya, dinner. My place. Nothing fancy. Malik, should I bring tools or wine?" "Maya, just bring yourself. And maybe don't wear the boots." He smirked. Too late, they were already on. Friday came, and with it, the nerves. Malik stood in front of her front door, same sleek wood panel, same brushed nickel handle, but this time it didn't feel like a job. This time, he wasn't there to fix something. He rang the bell. The door opened slowly, and there she was, Maya Williams, in a soft cardigan and leggings, barefoot again, hair loosely pinned back, no makeup, no designer shine. Just her. "Hey," she said. "Evening," Malik answered, holding up a modest brown bag. "I brought some honey cornbread. Store-bought. But I warmed it. That's the most southern thing I've heard all week. Come in." The house smelled like roasted rosemary and garlic warmth, not wealth. Malik stepped inside and followed her into the kitchen. 2 plates were already set at the island, candles lit, a soft R&B playlist playing low in the background. "I hope you like salmon," she said, setting down a tray with glazed fillets and roasted vegetables. "I like food that someone else cooks, so yes." They ate slowly, talked freely, work, childhood, funny neighbors, worst dates. Malik told her about the time he got stuck under a crawl space for 3 hours in July. She laughed so hard, she choked on a piece of asparagus. At one point, she leaned her elbow on the counter, chin resting on her palm. "You have a quiet way of being loud." Malik raised a brow. "That a compliment?" "It is. You don't force presence. You just have it." He didn't know what to say to that, so he said nothing. But something in his chest stirred. After dinner, they moved to the living room. Maya curled into the corner of her oversized couch. Malik sat at the other end, unsure of the rules, unsure if there even were any. She looked over. "You don't need to be polite. I wasn't raised to slouch in a woman's house." She rolled her eyes. "You're allowed to be comfortable. Especially here." That's when it shifted. For the first time, the space between them didn't feel like air, it felt like gravity. "So," she said, breaking the moment gently, "you ever wonder what people say about us?" "Us? You, me, this." She gestured around the room, vague but loaded. Malik exhaled slowly. "Probably a lot. Probably none of it good." Maya nodded, looking toward the window. "My world's loud, not just in volume, but in noise. Appearances, impressions, expectations. You don't just walk through it unnoticed." "I don't aim to," Malik said. "But I also don't ask for permission." She looked back at him. "That's what scares them." He held her gaze. "What about you? I don't scare easy. Later that night, she walked him to the door. There was no kiss, no lingering touch, just a quiet moment shared beneath the porch light. "Thanks for coming," she said. "Thanks for the food." As he stepped down the front steps, she added, "You still owe me sandwiches." He glanced over his shoulder. "Next time, I'll even toast them." She smiled, then slowly closed the door behind her. Scene 4. The noise the next morning. Malik sat at a small diner near his apartment. A few regulars nodded as he walked in. He took a seat by the window, ordered black coffee and grits, and opened his phone. The screen lit up with a photo Maya had sent, a blurry image of a sandwich drawn in crayon, childlike and ridiculous. The caption read, "Visual inspiration. Get it right." He laughed into his coffee. But as the waitress poured him a refill, a man at the booth behind him whispered, a little too loudly, "Isn't that the guy with the rich white woman on Instagram?" Malik stiffened. Another voice, a chuckle. "He's just her project." He didn't turn around, didn't say a word. But he felt it, the shift, the invisible line, the reminder that not everyone was clapping for them. He slid his phone back into his pocket and stared out the window, suddenly unsure if the warmth he'd felt last night could survive the chill waiting outside. Monday came like it always did, early, loud, unbending. Malik buried himself in work, hopping from one job to the next like it was oxygen. A short in a kitchen panel in Matthews. A busted breaker in Dilworth. A strange humming noise in an old Baptist church off Beatty's Ford Road. Each stop was a reason not to think. Each task a distraction from the voice that echoed in the back of his mind. "He's just her project." It wasn't the words that hurt most. It was the tone, the assumption, the ease with which strangers decided he didn't belong in her orbit. Tuesday morning, his boss at Carter & Sons Electric pulled him aside before dispatch. "Malik," he said, folding his arms, "You got any idea why the Simons account just pulled out?" Malik blinked. "No, sir. I haven't even worked that property in weeks." "Yeah, well, they said something about public image. Said they saw something online. You do something I should know about?" The question wasn't cruel, just cautious. But it still cut. "No," Malik said, jaw tightening. "I haven't done anything but my job." The boss nodded. "All right then. Let's keep it that way." That night Malik didn't sleep. He sat on the edge of his bed, phone in hand, thumb hovering over Maya's contact. He could tell her about the account, about the comments, about the weight creeping back into his chest. But he didn't, not yet. Wednesday evening, Maya called first. "You free?" Her voice was low but warm, defying free. "I'm standing in my driveway with 2 milkshakes and no one to share them with." He smiled despite himself. "You bought 2 on purpose, didn't you?" "No comment. Come over." "Be there in 15. When he arrived, she was sitting on the front steps, legs tucked under her, sipping from a paper cup with whipped cream on top. She handed him the other. "Chocolate peanut butter," she said. "Figured you for a classic." He sat beside her, accepting the cup. "You were right." They drank in silence for a few minutes, listening to the wind whistle through the trees lining her yard. But then Maya shifted. "I need to ask you something," she said, not looking at him. Malik nodded slowly. "Okay, did someone say something to you?" He hesitated. "Why?" "Because something shifted. You're still here, but part of you is pulled back." He stared at the milkshake in his hands. "I heard something at a diner. Some guy called me your project." Maya exhaled, long and slow. "I'm sorry. You don't need to apologize for what people say. I do when they say it because of me." He turned toward her. "It's not your fault I don't fit into their world. You fit into mine," she said, voice firm. "And that's the only one I care about." A beat passed. Then another. "I lost a client," Malik said. "Simon's estate pulled out after that video of us got posted." Maya stiffened. What video? Someone snapped a shot of us at the park. I guess it made its way around. Damn it, she whispered, standing up and pacing a few steps. I'm so sick of this. Sick of what? Of people assuming they get to decide what's acceptable. Who I can be with, who you get to be. It's exhausting. Malik stood slowly. Then maybe we take a break. The words hit the air like a punch. Maya turned. What? Not from each other, just from the noise. You think that'll help? I think if I don't take a breath, I'll suffocate. She stared at him. Her eyes didn't plead, didn't beg, but they did hurt. Okay, she said softly, if that's what you need. It's not forever, I know. They stood in silence, two people caught between care and caution. Then Maya stepped forward and placed her palm gently on his chest. You're not a project, Malik Carter. I know you're not small, you're not temporary, you're not a symbol or a rebellion or a mistake. He looked at her, eyes glassy. Then why does it feel like I'm always fighting to prove that? She didn't answer, not with words. She leaned in, rested her forehead against his, and for a moment, neither of them moved. When he left that night, the porch light stayed on longer than usual. Scene 5. The Clarity rain fell steady that Thursday afternoon, coating Charlotte's streets in silver. Malik watched droplets race down his windshield from the driver's seat of his pickup, parked outside his apartment. Wipers off, engine quiet. He hadn't moved in 15 minutes. It had been a week since the milkshake on Maya's porch. 5 days since he'd asked for space. 4 nights of half sleep. 3 missed calls from her. And 1 gnawing sense of regret. The silence hadn't brought peace, only clarity. He missed her. Missed the way she said his name like it meant more than 5 letters. Missed the way she looked past his uniform and into the man beneath it. Missed the feeling of being seen, not scanned. Malik reached for his phone. He didn't call. He didn't text. He drove. Maya's house looked the same: wide porch, warm lights, wind chimes dancing on the edge of the eaves. But something felt off, quieter than usual. No music through the windows, no shadow moving behind the curtains. He almost didn't knock. But he did. A few seconds passed before the door opened. Maya stood there in an oversized hoodie, sleeves pushed to her elbows, a paint smudge on her wrist. No surprise in her face, just something softer, worn, resigned. Hey, he said. Hey. I was in the area. She lifted an eyebrow. You came from 4th Street. He smiled, sheepish. Okay, I lied, I wasn't. She stepped aside. You coming in or just measuring humidity? Inside, the scent of acrylic and coffee filled the air. Canvases leaned against the wall. One sat on an easel, half finished, a storm in blues and charcoal, like the sea swallowing a city. Yours? Malik asked, nodding toward it. Therapy. He walked closer. You ever plan to show these? No, they're not for anyone but me. Malik studied the strokes, aggressive, chaotic, honest. They look like they've been waiting a long time to exist. Maya didn't respond. Instead, she sat on the floor beside the window, hugging her knees. When I was 14, a teacher told me I had talent, then told me not to waste it on urban angst. That was her word, urban. Malik sat opposite her. I had a guidance counselor tell me to aim for electrician because college might frustrate me. They both laughed, but it was hollow. I didn't come here to dredge up the past, Malik said quietly. Then why did you come? He hesitated. Because I don't want to be a man who walks away when things get hard. And because I realize this isn't noise. Maya tilted her head. Then what is it? It's real and rare and terrifying. A pause. Then she whispered, same. They sat for a while in the dim light, the city's rain tapping gently against the windows. Finally, Maya said, there's something I should show you. She walked to the bookshelf, pulled out a slim folder, and handed it to him. Inside was a stack of printout screenshots, mostly Social media comments, blog posts. A few had photos of Malik and Maya at the park. Others were cropped images of him outside her house. He flipped through them slowly. Some were mocking, others cruel, all invasive. "I didn't want to show you earlier," she said. "You were already carrying enough." Malik closed the folder. "How long has this been happening?" "Since the park. Someone at that party we went to recognized you. The rest spiraled." His jaw clenched. "They know where you live." She nodded. "I had the cameras upgraded. Security companies on call. You should have told me. I didn't want to scare you off." "You think I scare easy?" She gave him a look. "You asked for space, Malik. I thought you were gone." He exhaled, staring down at his hands. "I thought space would protect us. But all it did was make me realize there's no safe distance from this. From them." "No," Maya agreed. "But there is strength in being close." He looked at her, eyes steady. "I'm here, and I'm not hiding." She moved closer, sat beside him, their knees brushing. "I can't promise it'll get easier. I don't want easier, I want truth." "And what do you want it to look like?" He thought for a moment. "I want to build something. With me, with us." She reached out, fingers intertwining with his. "Then let's start now." That night, they sat side by side on the couch, watching the storm outside. No music, no wine, just silence, shared, not suffered. Maya rested her head on his shoulder. "You know, I've been called many things," she said. "Too bold, too cold, too much." He kissed her temple. "They missed the best one." "What's that?" "Mine." She smiled, soft, certain. And in that small room, lit by nothing but the hum of street lamps and the echo of their honesty, the line between fear and courage blurred and vanished. Scene 6. The foundation. 2 months passed not in a blur, not in a rush, but in a quiet, deliberate unfolding. Sunday mornings became their ritual. Malik would bring breakfast, usually still warm from the diner around the corner, and Maya would brew coffee in the French press she swore made it taste more alive. They'd sit by the window in her studio, knees touching, sun spilling over there. Legs like a slow-moving river dot, the noise hadn't stopped. People still talked online, whispers still hissed. But Malik had stopped listening. They were building something, and it was theirs. It was on one of those mornings, toast still on the plate, that Maya turned to him and said, "I have an idea." He smiled. That sentence usually ends with pain or mischief. This time, it ends with both, sort of. She pulled out a tablet and handed it to him. On the screen was a mock-up of a website, Carterworks, a logo with a simple bolt and fist icon. A tagline beneath it, built with hands, driven by heart. Malik blinked. "Is this real? I've been working on it in my spare time. Branding, copy, visuals. You said you wanted to go independent, so I made a blueprint." He looked at her, stunned. "You did all this? Every color, every word, even picked fonts? You're a Georgia man, trust me." He was quiet for a long beat. "Why?" Maya leaned forward, resting her elbows on her knees. "Because when I see something good, I don't wait around for someone else to validate it. I invest. You don't think it's too soon?" "Too soon for what? Your dream? Your name on your own work?" His chest tightened in a way that wasn't painful, just full. "What do you want from me?" he asked, not out of doubt, but honesty. She met his eyes. "I want to build something with you. Not for you, not around you. With you." By the end of the week, Malik had filed for a business license. Maya helped him design flyers. They printed the first batch together at a local print shop. On Saturday, they walked through neighborhoods, taping them to light poles, dropping them into mailboxes. One older man with a cane squinted at the flyer and said, "You Carter?" "I am. Good hands matter. My son hired some tech who couldn't tell a wire from spaghetti. I'll call you." Malik grinned all the way down the block. Scene 7. The resistance. Nothing in life moves without resistance. It came the following Friday at a house in South Charlotte, a large colonial with ivy-wrapped pillars. The job was simple: assess a faulty circuit in the master bath. Malik rang the bell. A woman answered, sharp suit, perfectly pressed. She glanced at him, then at his uniform. "You're from the new company, Carter Works?" "Yes, ma'am. Malik Carter." She narrowed her eyes. "You were on that blog, with Maya Williams." Malik didn't answer. She crossed her arms. "She's a friend of my husband's firm." "Do you really think this little stunt of yours will last?" His voice was steady. "I think honest work lasts longer than gossip." She let him in but made a phone call within earshot. Malik could hear her. "Yes, he's here." "I told you, she's playing some kind of game." He didn't flinch. He fixed the problem, wrote up the report, left the invoice. Didn't dignify the comments with a single word. Back in his truck, he sat with the windows down, letting the spring wind cool his face. His phone buzzed. "Maya, lunch at the shop?" "Malik, on my way." "Bring your paint hands." That afternoon, they met at the space Maya had rented for her design work, a converted brick storefront on a quiet street. She'd hung some of her smaller paintings on the back wall. The front counter had 2 stools and a chalkboard menu that still read, closed softly in cursive. He told her what happened at the job. Her jaw tightened, but she didn't erupt. Instead, she walked to one of her canvases and flipped it over. "I painted this 2 years ago," she said. "Right after my ex-fiance told me I wasn't relatable enough for his clients." It was a black and white swirl of tangled lines, broken shapes stitched together by a thread of gold. "I almost destroyed it," she said. "But then I realized broken doesn't mean disposable." She turned to him. "You're not a phase. Malik, you're not a scandal. You're not something people get to whisper about until the next news cycle." He stepped forward. "And you're not my savior or my shield. I don't want to be. I want to be your damn partner." He smiled, pulled her close. "Then, let's keep building." Scene 8. The legacy weeks turned to months. Carter Works grew slow and steady, word of mouth, trust, quality. Malik started training 2 young apprentices from the neighborhood. Maya launched a small design studio out of the same space. They hosted community fix-it days once a month, free basic repairs for seniors. Single parents, veterans. The whispers didn't stop, but neither did they. They'd built something, not just a business, a bridge, a blueprint, a quiet rebellion against everything that said they couldn't. It started with a phone call Malik didn't expect. Monday morning, the sun hadn't even broken the skyline. When his phone lit up with an unfamiliar area code, "Mr. Carter?" A woman's voice asked. "This is Angela Morton. I'm the estate manager for the Hale family. We're reaching out for an urgent repair on one of their properties in Myers Park. Are you available for a consultation today?" Malik sat up straighter. The Hale family was old money, the kind of name whispered in real estate offices and inked into foundation plaques. "I can be there by 11. Thank you. The address is on your screen." When the call ended, Malik stared at the text. Something about it didn't sit right, but business was business, and Carter Works wasn't in a position to say no to legacy clients. At 10:55 a.m., he pulled into the long gated drive. The house was every bit as grand as its reputation: white columns, terraced lawn, a garage bigger than most apartments. A woman in her early 60s met him at the door, dressed in a pale gray suit and pearls. "Thank you for coming," she said briskly. "The issue is in the upstairs sunroom. The chandelier shorts out whenever it rains. We've had 3 techs look at it. No one solved it. I'll do my best, ma'am." He followed her upstairs, toolkit in hand, boots silent on polished oak. The chandelier was antique, French, wiring delicate as lace. He worked in silence, inspecting the lines, testing voltage, tracing faults. He didn't notice the voice behind him until it spoke. "Well, this is unexpected." Malik turned. Standing in the doorway was Stephen Grayson, partner at Langford, and Grayson Law, board member at the City Historical Council, and Maya Williams' ex-fiance. They stared at each other for a long, breathless moment. "Didn't realize you moonlighted as an electrician," Grayson said coolly. "I own the business," Malik replied, tone even. Grayson stepped into the room, arms crossed. Maya's always had a taste for unconventional projects. Malik didn't move, didn't blink. "I'm not her project." "No? Then what are you?" "Her way of playing rebellion? A message to her father? You're temporary, Carter. You know that, right?" Malik clenched his jaw, but his hand stayed steady. He clipped a frayed wire, replaced a corroded connector, and responded without looking up. "I build things that last, including myself." Grayson chuckled. "Let's see how long that lasts when the novelty wears off." He turned and walked out. Malik finished the job in silence. When he descended the staircase, Mrs. Hale waited with a check already signed. "You're efficient," she said with a smile. "Much better than the last team. I'll be calling you again." "Thank you, ma'am." He stepped outside into the blinding afternoon light and, for a moment, couldn't move. Grayson's words echoed, but they didn't burn. They didn't shake him like they might have a year ago. But they did ignite something resolve. That night, Maya found him in the studio, staring at one of her newer canvases, stark black strokes on a red wash. "You okay?" she asked. He turned to her slowly. Grayson was at the Hale house. Her eyes narrowed. What did he say? Enough. Maya crossed her arms. "You want me to handle it?" "No," Malik said. "But I do want to ask you something." She waited. "If it ever came down to your world and mine, what would you choose?" She didn't answer immediately. She walked to the bench, sat, thought. "I don't believe I should have to choose. But if the line is drawn, if they make it clear, I will burn that line to the ground." Malik stepped closer. "They already drew it." "Then let's start building on the ashes." Scene 9. The Rebellion. 2 days later, Maya sent an open letter to the Charlotte Ledger, a respected publication that often featured editorials from leaders, creatives, and activists. Her letter was titled, "When We Love Outside the Lines." She didn't name names, but she didn't have to. The message was loud, deliberate, devastating. "Some will see what I've built with Malik Carter as rebellion. But rebellion implies destruction. What we're doing is construction of equity, of presence, of partnership. And if that makes people uncomfortable, then perhaps they should ask themselves why." By noon, the article had been shared over 2,000 times. Malik didn't post about it, didn't comment, but his inbox began to fill with support, with inquiries, with opportunity. One message stood out, from Angela Morton. Subject: "The Hales would like to cancel future services with Carter." "Works." No explanation. He simply replied. "Noted. Thank you." Then he turned to Maya, who sat at the workbench, brushing color into a new canvas. "We just lost a client." She looked up, unbothered. "We'll gain 10 more. That night, as they stood on the rooftop of the studio building, overlooking the city they were reshaping with every choice, Malik took her hand. "You know what Grayson said?" "What?" "That I'm temporary." She leaned into him. "Then let's outlast him." Scene 10. The storm spring rolled in fast and mean. Rain lashed at the city for 5 straight days, flooding low streets and knocking out power across East Charlotte. Malik barely had time to sleep, booking back-to-back emergency calls, seniors with no lights, single moms with fridges on the blink, apartment managers begging for panel resets. Each day, he worked until his back ached and his boots steamed from soaked carpet and crawl spaces. But on the 6th day, the storm hit him. It started with a message from Devin, one of his apprentices. "Hey boss, you see the article?" Malik frowned. "What article?" Then his phone buzzed again, this time from 3 different numbers, all with the same headline: "Community Hero or Social Climber? The Rise of Carter Works Under the Wing of Maya Williams." Published by a known conservative local blog, the piece was a smear job. It pulled old photos from Malik's first jobs, twisted quotes from Maya's letter, and painted their story as a strategy hymn chasing wealth, her flaunting wokeness. They even included a grainy photo of him at a job site beside an elderly black woman with the caption, "Marketing or Manipulation." Malik's stomach twisted. He didn't finish the article, just turned off his phone, grabbed his keys, and drove. Maya was in the back studio, paint on her cheek, wearing a hoodie she'd borrowed from him weeks ago. She saw his face and didn't ask what was wrong. She just said, "It's out, isn't it?" He nodded. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "You didn't write it. But I made it possible by putting us in the light." Malik ran both hands over his face, breathing hard. "They didn't come for us. They came for me. They turned everything we built into a punchline." "No," Maya said, standing up. "They tried, but we're still standing. They're dragging your name through it now. I can survive that." He looked at her, pain etched behind his tired eyes. "But can we survive this?" Silence. And then, "Do you want to stop?" It wasn't a threat, wasn't fear. It was pure, naked permission. Malik sat on the bench beside her, elbows on knees. "I used to think I could outwork judgment. That if I was good enough, useful enough, they'd let me in the room. But I was wrong. They don't care what I fix. They only care what I represent." Maya sat beside him. "And what do you represent?" He looked at her. Disruption. A soft laugh escaped her lips. "Then you're not the only one." They sat like that, shoulder to shoulder, storm still tapping at the windows, until her phone buzzed. Maya glanced at the screen, then handed it to him. It was an email from a producer at NPR Charlotte. Subject line, "We'd love to interview you both." Malik stared at it. "You think this helps?" Maya said nothing, just smiled. Scene 11. The Voice. The interview aired the following week. A 15-minute segment on resilience, partnership, and reimagining what success looks like. Malik spoke plainly, eyes steady, hands folded in his lap. "I'm not interested in being anyone's headline. I just want to build things that don't fall apart in storms. And I found someone who holds the same blueprint." When the host asked Maya what it meant to build with someone who didn't come from her world, she replied, "We build with what we have." He brought his hands. I brought the room. The backlash didn't vanish, but the support poured in stronger. Church groups, local business owners, elderly clients who wrote handwritten notes. A woman who said her son listened to the interview and cried for the first time in a year. The blog tried to run a second piece, but no one shared it. The narrative had shifted because they didn't break. Because they told their own story. One night, Malik stood on the same porch where Maya had once offered him a milkshake and a question. "You scared?" she asked. He looked out at the quiet street, at the light glowing from their studio down the block. "Yeah," he said, then added, "But not of them anymore." She stepped beside him. "What then?" "Of how much I care about this. About you. About all of it. That's not fear, Malik. What is it?" She leaned into him, rested her hand on his chest. "That's weight. The kind worth carrying." Scene 12. The home autumn came quietly that year. No fireworks, no fanfare, just a soft thinning of the air. Golden leaves gathering at curbs. And the kind of light that made everything look like it belonged in a memory. Business at Carter Works had grown not by leaps, but by roots. Slow, deep lasting. The calls came steadily now, not because Malik's face was on billboards, but because people trusted his name, his work, his word. He still answered every job personally, still showed up with a clean shirt and a steady gaze, still greeted every client with "Yes, ma'am," or "No, sir," even when they were half his age. But more often than not, he walked into homes now where people didn't look at him like a stranger. They looked at him like the guy who stayed. One Thursday afternoon, Malik stood outside a modest two-story house on Belmont Avenue. It wasn't flashy white siding, a red door, a cracked driveway that needed repaving, but it was theirs. He unlocked the door and stepped inside. The floors creaked, the walls still smelled faintly of primer, but sunlight poured in through the wide bay windows, landing on the wood like a promise. There were 2 mugs on the counter, his and Maya's, and a stack of paint swatches beside them, labeled dining room palette. She was in the back room, barefoot as always, crouched in front of a blank wall, a pencil between her fingers, a faint line already traced across the drywall. "What are you doing?" Malik asked, planning. "For?" She turned to him, eyes glowing. "A mural." "Of what?" "Not sure yet. But I think it starts with hands." He smiled, walked over, kissed the side of her temple. "You know, this still feels wild." "What does?" "You, me, here, together, still standing." Maya turned toward him, serious now. "It's not wild," she said. "It's earned." They stayed there for a long moment. No storm, no spotlight, just the quiet hum of a house beginning its first chapter. Scene 13. The dedication. The dedication came 2 weeks later, not for the house, but for the shop. They had converted the old storefront into a combined studio and workspace. One side held tools, shelves, and electrical diagrams. The other held canvases, brushes, and community tables where kids from the neighborhood came to learn on Saturdays. The front door bore a simple wooden sign, "The Williams and Carter Studio." That day, people came, old clients, new friends, neighbors, teachers, even Devon's grandmother, who brought lemon pound cake wrapped in wax paper. Near the end of the ceremony, Maya took the mic. She didn't prepare a speech, didn't read from paper. She just said, "There's a difference between being given something and being trusted to build it. This space didn't fall into our laps. We laid every plank, screwed every hinge, painted every corner. And we built it knowing there would be days the world would ask us to choose between love and peace, between truth and safety. We chose each other, and we'll keep choosing." When she stepped down, Malik stepped forward. He looked out at the crowd, older folks wiping their eyes, kids spinning in the leaves, and Maya watching him like he held a future worth defending. "I used to think the only thing I'd ever own was a toolbox," he said. "Turns out, I get to own something a whole lot heavier." He paused, hope. The room went still, then a pause, not thunderous, but real. That night back at the house, they stood on the porch, wrapped in one blanket, watching the wind pull gold from the trees. "I still can't believe it," Malik whispered. Maya leaned into him. "Then let me remind you," she said. "We didn't just survive, we built." And beneath the autumn sky, in a city that once tried to draw lines, between them, 2 people stood together, unshaken, unbought, unbroken. They hadn't just rewritten the story. They'd reclaimed it,